Okay, so the second part of the reason why you came is our amazing guests tonight. We have the honor of welcoming up Michael, Shannon, and Tracy Letts to the stage. Come on up.
Well, they told us to just start it off, so I guess you're probably wondering how this happened. Two guys from the non-equity theater scene in Chicago got a movie made. I met Tracy when I was 16 years old, so we're going on knowing each other about 30 years. And he played my dad, which was weird because he was 25 at the time. So you would have been 9 when you had me, but we went with it anyway. It was at this little theater up in Evanston called the Next Lab. It's not there anymore. And yeah, and then after we did this play, Fun or Nobody, Tracy said, I've been writing my own play for a while now, and doing readings of it now and then. I was wondering if you want to do a reading of it. And that was Killer Joe. Killer Joe. So we did a reading of it, and I was like, hot damn, this is cool. So then you allowed me to perform in it at the Next Lab, the same venue where we did Fun or Nobody. And that ran at the Next Lab for about 8 months, right? And then we knew this woman from Scotland, Morgan, is that her name? And she said, you guys should do this at the Edinburgh Festival. So we went to the Edinburgh Festival. We did it at the Traverse Theater at the same time, by the way, that an actor named Tom Courtney was doing a one-man show called Moscow Station. That was pretty cool. And then we went to London and did it at the Bush Theater. And then we went to the West End with Killer Joe. And while we were there, a woman who ran a theater called the Gate Theater, Rose Garnett, came up and said, Tracy, you're great. I want to do your next play at my theater. And so what happened then? Had you already been writing?
When Killer Joe went to London, I was doing a play as an actor. I was in Picasso de la Panagio, the Steve Martin play, and we had taken it to California. It was my first equity gig, and I needed the scratch, so I wasn't able to go to London and work with you guys while you were putting the show up over there. But I got a week's vacation, and I went over. And while I was over there, Timothy McVeigh bombed the Murrah Federal building. And I heard the report on the radio in a cafe in London, and I thought it was satire. I didn't believe it. I thought it was English satire. And and it was a real kick in the stomach, you know, especially because I'm from Oklahoma, and the idea at the time, the idea of domestic terrorism, I mean, it's not so unusual now, but at the time it was bizarre. And so I started exploring that around the same time that our friend Rose asked us if we wanted to bring another show over to London. We didn't really have a theater. We had started at the Next, but they were not sponsors of our trip to England, so it was really just the actors in the show and the director, Wilson Milam, and myself, and they wanted to know if we wanted to bring another show over. So I was kind of kicking around the initial idea for Bug at that time, and I wrote the role of Peter for Mike. I haven't written a lot of roles for specific actors, but in this case I did. And I wrote the role of Peter for Mike, and we rehearsed it in Chicago, and then we wound up taking it over to the Gate Theater, which is not the famous Gate Theater in Dublin. This is a pub theater called the Gate Theater in Notting Hill. And we went there in the fall of 1996. And we did the play, and it was all right. I don't know that it was great. It was a first production of a new, challenging play, and we were working on it. And it had quite a life from there, because the first American production was at Woolly Mammoth in DC with a different cast, but the same director. And I was trying to work on it and fix the play because it had some problems. And I was still working on it, and we eventually you wound up doing it again.
Well, didn't it go, it went to Boston too, right? Was it
I don't
DC?
think so.
It was just DC?
Yeah.
Okay, so then, and then what was odd about Bug, seeing as how Tracy and I were Chicago people, was that nobody had done it in Chicago. Because you said we did it in London in 1996, and 5 years went by and nobody had done it in Chicago. Nobody in Chicago even really knew about it. So I belonged to a theater called Red Orchid Theater in Old Town. And I went to Guy, who was artistic director at the time, Guy Van Swearingen. I said, I can't believe nobody's done Bug in Chicago. This is kind of absurd. And Guy's like, yeah, we should do it. And you agreed to let us do it, and then we did it. And Dexter Bullard directed it, and thank you. And we were doing Bug at a Red Orchid Theater when 9/11 happened. That was nuts. That was deep. So, and then while we were doing it at Red Orchid Theater, a fella named Scott Morphy, who had helped bring Killer Joe to New York, which is a whole other story, but a producer from New York, he saw it at Red Orchid and he said, I want to bring this to New York.
Yeah, I had tried to get him to do it in New York after Killer Joe, and he wasn't interested in it. But when he saw the production of Red Orchid, he said, I didn't realize it was funny. I didn't know it was funny. And you just read it off the page, you can't tell it's funny. So he saw it. It's hysterically funny. And he said he wanted to move it. And by that point, I don't know when I had done the work. I did some more work on the play, and I really gotten the play, really gotten it down to the bone at that point, and it got really strong. So then a different production of the play, but I made a choice to go with Dexter.
Well, yeah, I was just about to say, I think you give Dexter a little credit there too, because I think he really kind of, I mean, not that Wilson is a great director too. He directed Killer Joe in the first couple of productions of Bug, but I think Dexter really cracked something in there.
Yeah, we were a little more simpatico about the play. So eventually we got a production in New York, 2003, 4.
Yeah.
It was the first production at the Barrow Street Theater in New York, and it was a slightly different cast, though the same director. Amanda Plummer was playing Agnes in the production, but she didn't make it. I mean, she's alive. But she kind of, I don't know how to describe it.
She walked out of the theater after our final dress rehearsal.
Yeah,
We finished the run through. We went upstairs for notes, and everyone was there except Amanda. And Dexter said, "Where's Amanda?" And the stage management said, "She's not here. She left." And this was our final dress rehearsal. I mean, we were literally, I think the first preview was the next day.
Yeah. So she left. And we were scrambling, and the Shannon Cochran, who had done the original production in London, we called her and said, "You busy?" And she did an amazing, I don't know that I've ever seen an actor do anything quite like it. She flew to New York and was in front of critics in 72 hours, in a play she had not done in 7 years. She was fantastic, and the play was a big hit, and it ran in New York. It ran for about a year, close to a year.
And then a fella named Billy Friedkin came to see the play. And was enamored with it.
Yeah, I was doing a production of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, not the same production that we did at Steppenwolf, an earlier production I was doing at the Alliance in Atlanta. And while I was there, I got a call. This is William Friedkin. And I thought it was a joke. Again, I thought the radio report was satire. I didn't believe it was.
He thinks his whole life is a joke. He thinks this is a joke.
And it was Billy, and he said, "I just wanted to tell you I saw your play and how much I loved it. I took friends to see it, and I think it's great stuff." And I said, "Thank you very much." And we got off the phone, and he called the next day and said, "I can't get it out of my head. I want to make a movie of it." And And I said, great. And he said, can you come out to see me in Bel Air and we could talk about doing this? And so after the play closed, he flew me to Los Angeles and we had our first meeting to talk about this film. And Billy, the first thing he said to me was, well, Billy had directed a couple of film adaptations of plays, notably The Birthday Party, an adaptation of the Pinter play, a great film of that with Robert Shaw and Patrick Macnee, and then he also did a historic film of Boys in the Band, a great movie. And so he had some experience translating plays to film, and the first thing he said to me is, first, do no harm. He said, I like the play, I'm interested in the play, I don't want you to do a lot of bullshit, I want you to write the screenplay, I don't want you to do a lot of bullshit opening it up, wouldn't make any sense to do that. You worry about telling the story, and then I'll worry about how to shoot it. And that's very much the spirit we entered into it with. I should say that it's hard to get a movie like this made. It's hard then, it's hard now. It's always been hard to get a movie like this made. I don't remember what the budget was for Buck. It wasn't much. He asked me who I would want in the cast, and I said, well, I want my cast. And he said, well, you know that's not going to happen. I can't get the movie made like that. I have to have somebody, not necessarily even to sell tickets, but somebody I can go to the people who are going to give us the money to make this and say, I've got this person. So I don't ever remember hearing another name other than Ashley's when he was discussing Agnes. I don't think another actress ever came up. Ashley signed up to do it. And from the beginning, Billy said, I want Michael Shannon. And I saw him do the play, and I've got to have Michael Shannon. And Billy really fought for Michael. The people who did put up the money, they were fine with Ashley, but they wanted somebody else in the role of Peter, and Billy really stood his ground, and he's the reason that Michael's in the film, because Billy just dug his heels on it.